Some of these qualities are well learned and shared with little training by most people, for example, pitch, volume, timbre. Some other are complex and even subjective, such as danceability, happiness, agreeableness. Some we don't even have a name for, but we can still detect them as any DJ experiences while modulating the mood of his audience. Distinctive qualities emerge from our habits, or as the other side of the coin, from the statistical properties of the musical environment that surrounded us during our entire lifetime. In order to explain the origin of cultural distinctive qualities, Kieran suggests that Gerard Edelman's theory of neural Darwinism has a potentiality to found the hypothesis of a mechanism rooted in a sort of competition between neural representation of the sound around us, each one trying at the same time to fit the most successful expectation and in the end to build naturalness. These qualities are the direction we look at to distinguish the sound flow around us in time and as simultaneous layers. As we are part of the auditory scene, we ourselves, at least with our heartbeat, there will be always some layers beside the one we are listening to. But what happens when we cannot distinguish anything in time within one some layer? First of all, why it may happen. This happens when changes are so thin in the qualities we are examining that apparently nothing moves. The situation demands us a strong and fatiguing evolutionary effort in creating in real time those qualities according which we shall be able to distinguish that moment of the sound flow in shorter units, so that we can start making expectation of their development. This is what we mean when we say usually that some music is difficult to listen to. If we can't do that, we'll start to turn our attention to other sound layers and ultimately to our heartbeat, or we will start to generate sound by our own within our mind, for example, as it happens with the internal dialogue. What about that unsegmented sound flow? Eventually, a distinction is happening, but at larger time spans. And in the end, we'll label that sound flow with general macro quality states that distinguish it in opposition with other sound flows. This is something like what happens when one listens to some music that can be segmented properly, such as techno music for most classical music fans, and classical music for most techno music fans. What distinguishes one classical work in the most general sense from another classical work for a listener who is not able to segment classical music is nothing. Both words share the same quality state, that is, the no-segmentable category, otherwise say boring stuff. On the other side, these two words will be units in the higher level of the perceptive flow in some distinctive qualities, such as, for example, acoustic instruments versus electronic instruments, no danceable music versus danceable music, no guitar solo music versus guitar solos music, and so on. It depends on the ability of the listener to find categories, to find qualities, let's say. The ultimate quality is exotic versus my favorite music, according which all the music I'm not used to is grouped under the massive category of exotic, as opposed to the music I usually listen to. It's in the category of the different, that can assume the attributes of boring, noise, or not music. And most people say, create an identification between not music and noise. No? This is not music, this is noise, for example, typical assertion. Or with a little conceptual jump, the other stuff, the outcast, the enemy, something that is just qualified as different as what I know. Of course, there is also a charm of the exotic that we must account for, but as we are not able to segment it, the effort in keeping it in the foreground is stressing, fatiguing, and after a while, when we get bored or annoyed, and we don't have, that's important, the energy to overcome that threshold, we end in turning our attention to somewhere else, to something else. In conclusion, I hope I have shown some support to the assertion that not only listening is an activity, I suppose as a passivity, let us say, but it is a creative activity, as the continuous generation of distinctive qualities will not only respond to the environment we are in, but to the sample we choose to put in our foreground.